what I would like to address, trying to kind of looking at Kerala media experience from the perspective of modernity, or as I would want to call it, limited engagement with modernity. It actually kind of encapsulates interesting polemical interpretations of certain important engagements with modernity that we have done as a society, that Kerala has done as a society. Anyway, I would not want to get into that, but the understanding of media and its larger space in the context of Kerala modernity, it is something which has interested very many academicians and journalists alike. And of course, as Shaji had indicated in his presentation, Robin Jeffrey is one of the persons who has actually done a lot of pointed, specific, focused work on this this intermingling of the idea of modernity and the Malayalam or the Kerala media. So, in a seminal work on this media understanding, the book, the 2012 book, which came up after compiling many of his essays published earlier, the seminal book called Media and Modernity, Communications, Women and the State in India. It's essentially a kind of analysis of the Kerala media situation. There are a lot many essays in that look at the Kerala situation specifically. And that seminal book starts with a preface where he looks at two women who are reading newspapers. I mean, there's a woman at a bus stop trying to send her children to school, and she's reading a newspaper. And then there is this other image of a fisherwoman who picks up a newspaper or a bit of a newspaper on the way back from her work so that she can also read it. So he says, that these two images are interpreted by Robin Jeffrey as a clear symbol or a representation of the kind of media prevalence or the kind of engagement with media that the average Malayali society has, and especially the way in which women are engaging with media, unlike in many other parts of India. But having said that, he kind of presents also the case that there are very many aspects to this kind of engagement, and it's not a singular factor which has created this kind of engagement and involved, interaction with the media or the products of the media. There are, of course, factors like sociological changes. There are factors like political history, which, of course, Shaji was mentioning. He was looking at the various streams of political streams which have impacted Kerala media. And there is not a single factor, but it's a collection of all these factors. But what I would like to say, and of course, this has been said in parts by many other, observers and analysts of the Kerala media situation. My understanding is that that while there is an element of modernity, which is the central theme of all these engagements, this is an incomplete engagement. It's an engagement which has not really gone into a larger understanding of the media space or larger understanding of society. And as Sujitra points out about this environmental reporting, and I think if you look at the various aspects of media coverage in Kerala, or the kind of transition, historical transition that media has made in Kerala, one can see that that there are elements of modernity, the elements of so-called Kerala Renaissance, which reflect in the Kerala media space, but it's completely incomplete, both as a media phenomenon and as a larger social phenomenon or a social or political phenomenon which impacts a larger society. I will come into this aspect. I mean, these various dimensions of this limited engagement with modernity. But first, uh, uh, we have to look at the media, how the Kerala media has evolved through various socio-political regimes. For example, and when I say socio-political regimes, I don't mean regimes of political parties, but through various socio-political, economic, socio-economic regimes, as in from the 1950s to the 1970s, where when we had a quasi-social state, and from there moving on to the authoritarian state from 1975 to 77, and from there from the 1990s onwards into a socio-economic political regime of globalization. How media has evolved, Kerala media has evolved through these various stages, and in all these stages, its central character has been this limited engagement with modernity, which is an unfinished agenda and which actually is manifesting more and more starkly and perhaps more and more alarmingly in recent times. So the transition of Kerala media, if you look at it during the quasi-socialist regime, say since the formation of the state in the late 1950s to the 1960s and 70s, we had the print as the most important, media platform in Kerala, and that too, we had two big papers which controlled large segments of the subscription, but we had as many as 15, 20 papers which had regional influences, that influences in certain pockets among certain social classes, among certain socio-political classes, and collectively, by the time of mid 60s, unlike many other states in Kerala, Kerala's print media had entered the state of mass media. See, if you look at Kerala media's history before that, before the formation of the state and through the independence period, it had not acquired the characteristics of mass media. It was essentially print media which had been driven by primarily by the socio-political cause of the liberation of the country and liberation of the state. So the larger the movement of national liberation was the central theme of almost all the media engagements, especially we are only print at that point of time in terms of private and non-governmental engagement. So the central characteristic of all these media engagements were essentially national liberation. But by the 1960s, after the formation of the state and with the kind of reach that media had, as Robin Jeffrey very beautifully pointed out through the examples, through the images of two women, one fisherwoman and a Syrian Christian woman who was trying to send her children to school, obviously from an upper middle class background. The prevalence, the kind of expansive proliferation of media and a larger engagement with the society that people had. So by mid 1960s, we had entered the stage of mass media, and from then onwards, one can see that there's been the interest of the market or the interest of profit had become a central characteristic of Kerala media, and it has grown in leaps and bounds. I will not go into the larger details because, as Tina was suggesting, I also have a situation at home where I need to take care of a few people who are unwell. So I will finish this as early as possible and try and get back to that. But having said that, by the time Kerala entered its mass media phase in the 1960s, and through every single decade that we have seen after that, one can see the rising, the constant rise of the market forces within the media and the systematic dilution of the larger goals and principles of the fourth estate. So 1960s onwards, we have this mass media phase, and we have this competition between these two primary big print organizations to garner more advertisements, to get more reach through various means. And this is continuing till now. I mean, even now we can see very many manifestations of these kind of mass media competition. But as we all know, by the 1990s, big media in the form of technology-driven media entered the larger media space, and it came into the hands of a large number of private practitioners, private entrepreneurs, private corporates. So there's this combination of market-driven forces and this limited engagement with modernity. They have coexisted, and as I was telling you earlier, over the last few years, this has acquired alarming proportions. So when I say alarming proportions, for example, as I was telling you that this profit-driven media coverage, which kind of glosses over things, which kind of presents titillation in place of real, actual core content, as Sitra was saying. One can see even instances of that even today. For example, even as we are going through a pandemic, emerging newspaper in Malayalam thought it fit to kind of present a social media star's pregnancy as its front page story in as recently as about a couple of months ago. So we have very many instances of that happening across these media platforms. And if you look at the coverage of certain juicy scandals in the last 7-8 months in Kerala, once again you can see this larger interconnection between profit interests of mass media and the big media. But even as this is happening, if you look at again, one interesting aspect of Kerala media has been that right from the print period, it has systematically acquired and made its own the technological advancement and related concepts that come along with this technological advancement. For example, Kerala had one of the first print papers which used offset printing, and that too, interestingly, this offset printing was brought to Kerala by left-wing paper and not by the papers which had profit as their primary interest. So this kind of imbibing of various new technological facets and trying to keep up with new modern gadgetry that has come into various media instruments and platforms. So Kerala has always been in the forefront of that. The facsimile production was, of course, it came to Chennai first, but then Kerala was quick to replicate that. And as we all know, Kerala had India's first satellite television channel. Similarly, in terms of accumulating and imbibing digital technology too, Kerala has had some pioneers who have done pioneering platforms which kind of brought in the new media and technology into the Malayalis' life. But along with that, as I was saying, if you look at these last few years and especially the last few months, what one can see is that the thematic appendages of technology, the manner in which technology and kind of plays out in various ways, especially in the context of social media, that too has been imbibed by the Kerala media in a much more faster and much more deeper way than other parts of Kerala. For example, in the current context of the social media proliferation, we all know about the famous 2016 coinage of post-truth that came after Donald Trump's victory in the US elections in 2016. So the post-truth the phenomenon of post-truth in media had very many manifestations in terms of specific media engagements. Like, for example, one of the concepts which came along with post-truth was of wikiality, which was, of course, a coinage made by Stephen Colbert as early as 2006. But it became very prominent during the Trump campaign, when wikiality was one of the tools that was used to kind of advance Trump's campaign. Wikiality, of course, many of you may be knowing about it, but wikiality, as Stephen Colbert defined it, was it's not a reality in the real sense of the word. It's a reality which is created by a compilation of people who uh, who who, uh, who contribute to Wikipedia, or maybe just practice media as Wikipedia does its knowledge proliferation. It is you are free to contribute whatever you want to contribute to this platform. So the concept of wikiality, as Stephen Colbert kind of defined it, was that two or three people get together and they create a new reality, which does not exist in real terms, but then and they propagate it, and it becomes wikiality and not reality. So wikiality, this kind of constructed reality by people, motivated people, is what's called wikiality. And wikiality becomes the primary tool for something, and then it is promoted through what's called hyper nudging. The concept of hyper nudging is kind of add bits and pieces to what is the original wikiality and propagate it kind of over a period of time, and finally take it to the television studio, where uh, all this becomes, both the wikiality and the hyper nudging becomes part and parcel of what's called outrage journalism, ultimately creating the post-truth phenomenon, where certain vested interests benefit out of it. So over the last 5-6 months, especially during the juicy scandals like the gold smuggling and the dollar smuggling, so-called alleged scandals, what one could find was that these all these aspects, the aspect of wikiality, the aspect of hyper nudging, the aspect of outrage journalism, all this played out day after day uh, uh, in the Kerala media space. And this, again, as far as I was concerned, was another manifestation of Kerala media's uh, uh, limited engagement with modernity. And from all the media instruments, all the media platforms which hold sway over the Kerala society, from the print to television to digital, all these platforms had similar, manifestations. And you have some digital media interventions that we have in Kerala at this point of time, which are essentially kind of very poor imitations of uh, the kind of gossip magazines that we have in Europe and UK, and very poor imitations at that. But then the thing is, these gossip mongering, juicy presentations are perhaps the only profit-making digital interventions in Kerala. So overall, if you look at this situation, what we see is that from what began as a kind of concentrated uh, uh, engagement with modernity and its various elements, it is this steadily becoming a slave of uh, uh, the mass media profit incentive at one level, to it is becoming controlled by political and commercial vested interests at the mass media, at the big media level. And ultimately, in the age of the proliferation of social media, which is supposed to be democratic and which has the potential to be democratic, what we are seeing is these kind of the proliferation and the rampant rise of absolutely baseless forms of journalism, which kind of again use all these modern technologies and the kind of appendages, the thematic appendages that come along with it. This larger in this larger in this context of coverage, apart from the context of the coverage, are the larger issues that Robin Jeffrey has repeatedly pointed out, and many other observers have repeatedly pointed out. For example, the kind of absence of women as or women's issues as a central focus of the mainstream Kerala media, or the absence of Dalits and women in key positions in the media structure of Kerala, or the absence of environmental issues, as Sumitra was pointing out, the absence of core environmental issues as a very important point of coverage, or a studied analysis of social and environmental issues. And even in terms of political coverage, my own understanding is that that the coverage is by and far very superficial and superfluous. It doesn't really get into the core issues of it. You can get scores of examples from the current political coverage of the elections, and also the coverage of earlier periods. So overall, it is we all talk about the kind of historical traditions that Kerala modernity and Kerala media has, right from Benjamin Bedi to Sodeshavani Ramakrishna Pilla and various other icons. But the point is that in terms of practice, it's not a rounded whole. It's not something which kind of really points to a progressive engagement with modernity as we understand modernity and its various aspects. It cannot even be called in it. The point is, somebody like the renowned academic Stephen Smith, Yale University professor, he also had the seminal work called Modernity and its Discontents. But then he tried to present modernity as not as a physical phenomenon or a historical phenomenon, but as a state of mind, as something which kind of permanently questions a given situation or the parameters thereof. But unfortunately, if you look at Kerala media's engagement with modernity, you cannot even call it, you cannot even term it modernity and its discontents, because I don't think that this self-reflection or kind of looking back into oneself and trying to find out whether its engagement is proper, that the attitude of self-questioning is only conspicuous by absence. So in this larger context, one can only call it an unfinished agenda with sporadic interventions which kind of keep up with the spirit of modernity. And as I was saying, increasingly, something that is increasingly becoming more and more decadent, and something that's moving away from anything like finishing the agenda or trying to kind of accomplishing what the original pioneers of Kerala media had thought about. But in a larger sense, I think Kerala media is only reflecting the larger Indian society, larger Kerala society, where again the engagement with modernity is very limited. As famously represented by the character created by the legendary N.P. Vasudevan Nair in his novel Kalam, almost all people in the Kerala society, and especially the male population in Kerala society, seems to be varied representations of the central character of Kalam, Sedu, where the engagement with modernity is essentially driven by self-interest and a non-enlightened self-interest at that. So in this larger context, I think that's why when we look at Kerala's engagement with modernity, we have not had a women chief minister or a women speaker for so long. Ask K.R. Gauriamma, or even ask somebody like Chitralekha, who kind of made bold to drive an auto rickshaw in a northern Kerala town, and the kind of things that she had to go through. So this larger limited engagement with modernity, which kind of which gives lip service to modernity and its progressive values, but at the same time constantly regresses into feudalistic and profit-oriented, or we can name the kind of regressive tendencies that one needs to see in various regressive societies. So all these regressive trends are manifested in one form or the other. And when it came to something like the Sabarimala controversy, again we saw how large segments of the female population of Kerala, they also kind of adopted the regressive these elements and regressive factors. So in a larger sense, Kerala media represents the limited engagement with modernity that Kerala society has shown throughout its existence. Now the big question is, how does one address this situation in concrete organizational terms, either within the media or within larger society? Unfortunately, that is something which does not have a concrete answer, and perhaps the only task for media practitioners like myself and Sujitra would be to kind of somehow advance the original understanding of modernity as we have, or at least modernity and its discontents, and kind of advance a stream of self-criticism, self-introspection, and maybe create concrete organizational mechanisms for it as practitioners, as media practitioners, who would kind of address these tendencies on a case-to-case basis at any given point of time, and somehow create an atmosphere of media intervention which is productive and progressive at the same time. But then I have no clue as to how far it could take for individual practitioners like us, like for example, whether it is me or Chismitra or some other handful of other media practitioners, how far it could take for us to kind of push this engagement with modernity to some kind of level, some levels of accomplishment. With these doubts and with a larger kind of presentation of a larger broad trajectory of the Kerala media, I know that I had not been able to prepare well enough for this presentation because of various factors. But this is what I have in mind. I mean, this is something which has been in my mind for some time. And this is the trend that I've seen, especially which has come into my thoughts, and I've engaged with it in a constant manner, especially over the last 5-6 months, when the coverage has of these various juicy gossips and the political ramifications of that has gone completely beyond control and kind of sunk into very low depths. So it is in this context that I try to look at this historical engagement with modernity and its unfinished agenda, whether individual media practitioners by themselves would be able to address it, or whether there should be a larger socio-political engagement with it. Is a question that needs to be discussed in academic circles as well. But if you go by the track record of the political engagement in media, media engagement of various political parties of Kerala, again, we have no model which kind of even gives a semblance of hope. And I think in this larger context of the pandemic, where where we have by and large a very poor view of the future, and we don't have factors to kind of goad our optimism. I feel that the Kerala media also does not give any opportunity to be optimistic about it. With these words, I would like to conclude